Hello there. Today we're here with the mod Judaism Expanded, which adds a plethora of content to Judaism. We're playing as everyone's favourite nation, Simeon. So let's take a look at Judaism before we get going. Judaism increases clerics in towns and cities, provides estate satisfaction to the clerics, provides monthly religious influence. Yes, this mod uses monthly religious influence now, unlike the base Judaism. Then we get minus 50% pop conversion speed. Converting pops is going to be very difficult. Then we get the hostile attrition. Then we get speed of annexation, minus 25%. Integrating nations is also going to be difficult. But then we get some tolerance of heathens and heretics plus 2 each. And as you can see at the bottom here, we gain 2 new unique societal values. Let's take a look at those. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pronounce these, but the first of our 2 societal values are Zedek and Chesed. Zedek will increase the maximum tax for the burghers, peasants, as well as increasing pop conversion speed and decreasing the cost of investing in stability, but will decrease migration attraction by 0.25. On the flip side, Chesed will decrease max tax for the burghers and peasants by 5 each, but increase pop promotion speed, increase pop assimilation speed, increase pop growth, and increase tolerance of heretics and heathens, while providing 0.5 migration attraction. The path for Judaism in this mod is seeming quite clear to me. We probably want to stack tolerance of heathens as high as possible, because a lot of our pop is going to be heathens. It's going to be hard to convert them. And in a way, we kind of don't want to rely on vassals much, because it's going to be harder for us to integrate them than normal. But for that second societal value, we have halakha and agadah. Agadah decreases our crown power by 50% of the max level and decreases max control by 5, but increases institution growth by 50%, increases our diplomatic reputation, and it provides monthly diplomats. On the other hand, our other option increases crown power by 50%, but decreases institution growth and increases the cost of embracing institutions, while also providing max control plus 5, minus 10% to the expected cost of court, but decreasing tolerance of heretics and heathen beliefs. To go together with those, we also have some unique laws. We have our Dysphoria Administration, which provides quite a few different laws that we can pick from. There's actually quite a few sources of max control, making me wonder if a max control build is possible, where you just stack your max control modifiers as high as possible. We also have an option here to decrease the pop join rebels threshold. There's actually quite a few sources of that, and despite what the game says, we can decrease the pop join rebel threshold to 0, which will essentially make all of our pops loyal and never rebel as long as they stay above 0 happiness. It's quite hard to actually make sure they stay above that 0 happiness though. Then we have Dysphoria Economics, with a bunch of options. These options also, of course, push us towards those societal values. So the ones we select are actually quite important because they're also going to affect us societal value-wise. And we might not want to pick a good reform if it pushes us towards a societal value we don't want, obviously. But we can kind of balance it out if we're smart. Big if, though. We're also, of course, a vassal of the Ethiopian Empire, so our first goal will likely be to achieve independence from them. Going back to our Judaism religion, Judaism in this mod is very similar to how it was in EU4, in the sense that we can adopt religious aspects, then we can hold festivals. The festival will provide bonuses based on the religious aspects we have applied. We can also adopt a school. Let's do that right now. So there's a bunch of schools we can adopt. They provide bonuses as well as pushing us towards one of the societal values in most cases. Note this Hasidic religious school. This one provides a monthly religious rebels growth of minus 2%. This is enough, I think, to ensure that we never have religious rebels appear in our country. The problem is, of course, most of the rebels aren't going to be religious. They're likely going to be patriot rebels from us taking territory. But being able to just cancel out religious rebels would definitely be excellent. So a lot of talking, but let's decide on our approach. I think we're going to stack our tolerance of heathens as high as possible no matter what, at least in this early period. Since conquering land is going to be difficult with all the rebels, we're going to do everything we can to increase our tolerance of heathens and push us towards tolerating heathens. For our school, I think we're going to grab this Kabbalist one. It pushes us towards Agadah, which, unlike its counter, doesn't decrease tolerance and also provides religious influence plus 0.10. We want to get our religious influence as high as possible, as fast as possible, so we can start spending it on things. So anything that provides religious influence is good for us. We can also go on pilgrimages. That will, of course, give us religious influence. We only have one place we can currently go on a pilgrimage, though, and that's Gondor itself, which only provides 10. But it's something we'll probably want to just press whenever we can. All of our other potential pilgrimage destinations are going to cost thousands of gold to actually get to. So there's something we definitely need to build up towards. When it comes to laws, as discussed, we're going to try and stack things that push us towards tolerance or decrease rebel growth threshold or increase our tolerance. We do have to be a bit mindful though. If we push too hard towards things like Agadah, our crown power and our max control are just going to collapse. It might actually be worth staying balanced between Halakha and Agadah, because then we won't have the negatives from either side. As always though, staying balanced can be quite difficult, and I think we also have some new privileges that we can hand out. Yes, we have Dysphoria in Gathering here, enables Jewish migration events. We've also got this Zealot Vanguard, which increases the strength of our army quite a bit, plus 10 morale, plus 2.5 discipline, also providing a little bit of pop conversion speed. This would help counter the pop conversion malice that we get for being Jewish. Then for our burghers, we have this Dysphoria Concord, which increases pop assimilation speed, increases trade capacity, provides a diplomatic reputation and a little bit of tolerance of the true faith. Then we have this Heter Iska, which decreases monthly inflation growth and decreases bank interest. I wonder how high we can decrease our bank interest rate. The bank interest rate is 10% by default. Hypothetically, we could get it to 0, and then I guess we wouldn't pay interest? I've never actually tried to do that, but it's an idea, I guess. We're also going to grab Itinerary Court. Our capital isn't really that good at the moment, being in the rural location of Gondor. What we probably want to do is we probably want to capture Axum and then move our capital there. If we're lucky, once we conquer it, we'll get the event to just move over there. I won't necessarily hold my breath though. We're going to set ourselves to sow discontent here in the start. And we're going to go for diplomatic endeavours. We're going to want somebody to support our independence. Let's actually insult Ethiopia right now. That'll decrease our loyalty a bit. Hopefully we can go below the line. There's a chance they'll enforce religious on us, which we really don't want, as you can imagine. Our economy too is also going to be somewhat non-existent for a while. We do start with a fort, so we could demolish that, but in this situation I'd rather keep it because it's all we have between us and annexation, right? Alright, let's see how things go. I'm going to save a reform. None of the reforms are really speaking to me at the moment. We'll save that for the next era. Now let's unpause. We can see immediately that pops within our nation become rebellious. Despite being a Jewish nation, the majority of the people in our nation aren't actually following Judaism, so they're immediately going to become rebellious. Once all of our laws come into effect though, we'll have to see how high our tolerance of heathens becomes. It may be enough for us to avoid potential revolts. We've become disloyal enough, so we're going to form an independence movement against Ethiopia. We're not strong enough to fight them. We have 600 levies, they have 6,000, plus 500 regulars. So we're going to need to find someone to support us. I'm thinking one of the Nubian kingdoms. They're quite strong. There's also Yemen across the sea. A lot of them just don't like us though. We need to get our relationship into the positive for them to actually be willing to join us in fighting Ethiopia. We've got enough religious influence to grab a religious aspect. We also have access to this Establish the Faith religious action. This will convert a share of our pops within our territory to Judaism. I'm not sure how many it will convert. Before we think about that, let's look at our religious aspects. These religious aspects also push us towards each of the societal values we have. There's actually a few we don't have access to because they're available from research. As I mentioned, each of these provides a bonus if we complete a festival. For example, the aspect of scholarship, if we do a festival, will increase research progress by 10% for 3 years. Since we're likely going to end up fighting quite soon, we're going to grab aspect of resolve. It only increases our morale by 0.25, but any sort of buff will do, right? Here comes the Renaissance. We'll, as always, grab administration. We're probably going to need the religious war CB, because it's going to be quite hard for us to expand, all things considered. Since we're in this age, we're also going to grab local army organizations just to buff our levy size a little bit. Not that our levies are really going to make a big difference. Alright, we've managed to grab the Kingdom of Elodie to support our independence movement. Should we declare independence right now? Well, we need to wait a month to get a diplomat. But based purely on numbers, we are stronger than Ethiopia. They do have 3 other vassals to support them though. I think we're going to do it. It's not like there's an alternative. I guess we could wait and hopefully gain someone else to support us, but I'd rather fight and potentially win sooner rather than later. We'll call up our levies, the meager amount they are. We'll probably hide within our territory for the most part though. Since we do have the attrition bonus, if the Ethiopians decide to invade us, we can hopefully bleed them out. Our allies are going to be the ones doing the heavy lifting though. Hopefully they can actually fight and defeat the Ethiopians. The Ethiopians only have 8,000 men though overall, while we have 22,000. So surely it should be an easy win. Some of the Ethiopian vassals decide to siege our capital and got wiped by our allies. That's perfect. Some of our allies have actually attached to us. That's nice. I guess we'll go and invade then. It looks like we actually get slaves from taking land. I wasn't aware that we have access to slaves, but I guess it makes sense. Pretty much everyone does. So that means we should try and occupy as much land as possible so we can enslave large portions of people. Now let's think about what we want from this war. We want our independence, obviously, but we could also take quite a lot of Ethiopian land. Something like this would be the max we could take, but I feel like that might be a bit too much for multiple reasons. It would increase our antagonism, though honestly not too much. Only 2 nations would go above -50, one of them being Ethiopia. So maybe it is possible for us to take that large amount of territory. Problem is, once we defeat Ethiopia, we're going to become independent. The nation that's currently supporting our independence, I doubt they're going to keep supporting us once we become independent. So it may just be better to take a small amount of territory over a large amount, just to avoid having a large border. It wouldn't really lead to much though, because most of our border would be with Ethiopia. Well, let's fight them first and see if we can't achieve this. Then we'll think about whether we should actually do it. Well, the Ethiopian army just got stack wiped by our allies, so we could easily demand this. Could also take a patch of money from them as well. Thing is though, a lot of the pops in these nations are just going to be so disloyal. You know what, let's just do it. We can always just release vassals, though it would be hard for us to integrate them. We now have the option to consecrate synagogues in cities under our control. I'm not really sure what this does. Let's do it. Let's build a synagogue in Aksum. It seems it reduces unrest by 5, increases local cleric power, increases conversion speed, and increases peasant enfranchisement as well as literacy. These could be quite helpful in keeping rebellions down at the very least, since they decrease the unrest rate. We have 2 potential locations. Which one has the most pop? We'll throw them down in the places that have the most pop to start with. After all, they're going to be the main sources of unrest within our nation. We're going to start coring territory. We'll see how much we can core. We may have to release vassals. If we do, it's not the end of the world. It's something we'd like to avoid, but we won't cry if it does happen. We immediately have 2 revolts to contend with. We have a Tigrayan one and an Anmaran one. I think we'll release the Tigrayans as vassals. It does mean we're going to have to release Aksum though, which I did want to keep for ourselves. We've already partially cored Tigray as well. Thing is, it's going to take like 20 years to actually core Aksum, and rebels are likely to appear far faster than that. One thing I should have done maybe is bank religious influence so that I could just convert a bunch of pops to Judaism. Too late for that now, obviously, but that might have helped, or it should have helped, deal with a lot of the rebellions that we're going to experience. Yep, having a lot more rebels show up now. I was thinking we would try and accept some of the pop, but I haven't been able to get enough prestige to, which is a pity. Alright, let's think about this. Let's release vassals in the territory that's furthest away from our core area. Like in this southern territory we took. We'll release fiefdoms, or at least we'll release a combo of fiefdoms and vassals. Try to avoid releasing tributaries. They're one thing we don't want to release. So if we release that southern territory, how does that affect us rebellion-wise? We're still getting quite a bit of rebellions amongst 3 different groups. This one here is almost pacified. It wouldn't take much to stop them being rebellious. Let's also release this little bit of land up here, and this tiny one location up here. This would be a nice core bit of land that we could rule over if we can avoid rebellions in it. Let's consecrate another synagogue. This is the only other one we can consecrate. We'll build it in Axum. Hopefully that can reduce the rebelliousness of the pops here. Ironically, most of the rebelliousness is actually from our internal land. We don't even have a full core on Gondor because our beta Israeli people aren't the majority. I'd love to accept the majority culture of Aramar, but I just haven't been able to get the prestige. We're currently on 4.11 after going on a pilgrimage. It's going to be close, but we should get enough prestige to accept somebody, or tolerate them at least, before a rebellion happens. There we go. We'll now tolerate the Aramar people. That probably won't be enough to fully pacify them. We'll see though. That wasn't enough to pacify them. If we were able to fully accept them, it would probably be though. It would also give us cores on a lot of our territory. If only we got a random event that would give us prestige. But alas, I don't think that's going to happen. I guess we could just face the revolt. It might be a little awkward though, because the revolt is going to be from within our own territory. We may even lose our capital. The alternative is giving out more land to vassals to reduce the strength of the rebellion. Ironically though, because as I've said, most of the rebels are going to be within our capital region, which we cannot release because it is our capital. I guess let's just fight the revolt. This might be a good learning experience to see whether we can defeat a revolt. So they revolt. They of course seize our capital, forcing us to move our capital up to Axum. One of the problems is I think they're going to be stronger than us. At the very least, we do have our vassals to support us. They also stole our fort. In fact, they stole 2 of them. I probably should have demolished them. But we kind of want them. I don't really want to be without a castle. At least together with all our vassals, we are stronger than them. As long as our vassals don't just run in and get killed. And if they decide to march into our territory, they'll start getting the attrition. Looks like they have marched into our territory. Let's see if we can't just kill them. Yep, we were able to overpower them. Excellent. I think that's their whole army. There's 500 men left apparently. Yeah, oh, there they are. They're running away. And there we go, we stack wiped them. Now we just need to do some occupations, and the war should be won. There we go, let's annex the revolter. Looks like it did move our capital back to Gondor after we retook it. That's kind of unfortunate. But oh well, at least we've survived that first hurdle of a revolt. With that overcome, we can focus our potential elsewhere. Speaking of which, we have another religious aspect we could fire off. Instead of doing this, we could establish the faith in a province. I guess let's do it and see how many people convert. Let's pick a location. Let's pick Axum. I think it's our most populous area. Perhaps not though, actually. Lasta seems to have more pops in it overall. Let's head on over to the ledger. Look at Lasta. Lasta has a population of 63,000. None of them are Jewish currently. So let's convert it, or establish the faith there. Then let's go back to the ledger. It looks like he converted nearly 20% of the population. Of that 63,000, 12,000 are now Jewish, or at least follow Judaism. They haven't been assimilated into our culture. That's good to know at least. As I said, maybe the tech is just stacking religious influence and spamming established faith to convert everyone to our religion. But now at least I think we're just going to turn inwardly and try and core our territory. As mentioned, integrating our vassals is going to be a bit harder because of being Jewish, decreasing the annexation rate, and being pushed towards decentralization, also decreasing the annexation rate. So we'll try to avoid having too many of them. We're going to try and avoid vassal maxing, as you would normally do in EU5. We've managed to get enough prestige that we could accept the Aramara culture. That would push us over our cultural capacity limit by 2, I think. But it would mean we'd core all of our land. We actually don't have a full core anywhere at the moment. None of our land is fully integrated. This of course leads to rebelliousness and a lack of control. But accepting that culture will push us over the limit, obviously, as I mentioned, which will decrease the efficiency of our cabinet, which is something we want to avoid at least until we've cored this land. Because our priority obviously is to core it so it stops being conquered, which is far worse than the provinces being integrated. So we'll hold off for the moment, as long as we don't get a negative event that reduces our prestige. If we do, I may make the choice to accept that culture, just because I never know when we're going to get another prestige event, right? Or we'll be able to increase our prestige high enough. It actually looks like Ethiopia's been pretty much destroyed. They were attacked by this Ifat nation, and they've been reduced to just a very small location. So we could easily finish them off. Our goal is probably going to be unify as much of the Horn of Africa as possible, and then we could think about expanding north. Jerusalem cries out to be liberated after all. And if we do liberate Jerusalem, I believe we have a formable as a Jewish nation. I believe we can form Judea. So if we were able to get up to and take Jerusalem, that would be excellent. The problem is, of course, taking Jerusalem. I mean, the Mamluks are right there, right? And they're not going to just let us. Ah, there goes our ruler. He actually had a poor time of it. He had 3 children and all of them died. I think within a year. No, one of them lived to 2. One of them lived to 1. But that's the end of our starting dynasty, I guess. Despite that, we now have a CB on the Ethiopians, so let's wipe them out. They're very much reduced, so they shouldn't really pose anything close to a threat. They are pulling in another nation to help them. I think we'll full annex them. We'll have to see what the antagonism looks like, but I don't see a reason not to expand if there's an option available. And there we go, we'll annex them. This only leads to a 33 increase in antagonism, and most of it's with Ethiopia and their ally, who are about to not exist, and so aren't a big problem. We'll try to hang on to this land, but if it becomes too much of an issue to handle, we'll just give it out to vassals, same with the previous territory. Speaking of which, can we start integrating vassals now? Nope, we need to wait another 10 years. Ah, here's one of those Jewish migration events. We haven't seen one so far. It looks like we gain about 0.3 development. Yemen loses opinion of us, and Jewish pops migrate from their territory into our land. If they always migrate into the capital, we could probably use that to stack development, or at least increase it rather quickly. I don't know the criteria for that event though, so whether it's something that can be done fast or quickly is something I'm unaware of. Right, let's begin integrating our vassals. We actually got a very nice event just now that made it so integrating vassals, where is it? Yeah, loyal subjects reduces the cost of integrating vassals by 15%. As we're an African nation, we also have access to gifts and hostages, which reduce diplomatic annexation by 10%, on top of the minus 10% we get from consolidation of titles. So we should be able to integrate these guys quite quickly. This nation, to be fair, it's only got a single province, but it's going to only take 7 years. We're also rather close to researching the religious CB. Then we can start expanding in earnest. For now, we haven't really been able to expand at all, because I can't get CBs on people unless they're my enemy, and the people that are my enemy are stronger than me. Although maybe we could beat Ifat here. I don't think so though, or at least I don't want to risk it. I'd rather expand elsewhere, and the religious CB is going to help with that. We actually have access to this building here, this Yeshvan, which we can research soonish, I guess. It can be built in towns and cities. It increases maximum control by 5, and it increases local pop conversion rate by 50%. That's quite a lot. It is expensive to build though. It's going to be 400 gold just to build it. So I don't think we're going to be able to rely on it in the early period. Once we expand and become larger though, I could definitely see us just throwing that down in every city we find, or town obviously, and then just converting everyone quite quickly. At least it will counteract the minus 50 we get from being Jewish by default. I mean, that's the big block. That minus 50% makes conversion so slow, I almost feel like it's not even worth considering it. Right, religious CB online, my beloved. Now we can start expanding in every direction. And that's what we're going to do, probably. We're going to start eating the small nations around. A lot of them don't even have allies. So just walking in and eating them shouldn't be a big problem. Conquering them will, of course, increase our strength. We may have to start releasing vassals, more than I would like to, though, depending on what the religious situation is like. Maybe let's bank some religious influence for a bit. The maximum is only 100, though. With 100, we could fire off 2 establish the faiths, which could hopefully pacify pops enough to avoid rebellions. We're going to stay flexible, though. No hard limits on our expansion and ideals. A lot of these nations don't even have forts, so wars with them are going to be as simple as just walking into the country and then walking out, essentially. Alright, first CB online. These guys only have 1,800 men. Could our vassals defeat them? They could do. I'm going to declare war then and not raise my levies so that we can declare war on someone else immediately once our other CBs are online. Hopefully our vassals can just win the thing. Although watching, I think I just saw some of them get stack wiped. Yes, I guess we're going to have to intervene. Vassals, why are they so useless? Ah well, we'll head over and help. We have quite a few levies now, 2,600, so we shouldn't really have any problems with these enemies. They're simply not strong enough to really match us. Not sure where their army went. Oh no, they must have got stack wiped, I didn't notice. Either way, we'll full annex them. We're going to have another CB available in a few months, So let's be mentally ready for that. There's our second war against this smaller nation. We'll raise our levies this time. The first time round, these guys are a little bit stronger than those last guys, so our vassals would have even more trouble with them than they did with those last guys who they also had trouble with. Again though, these guys don't have a fort, so just getting in, occupying their capital should be enough to force them to the peace table. Yep, there we go, full annexation. We didn't actually fight them at all, which is fine by me, I guess. Now we'll go for this third nation. They're not very big, but they are quite strong manpower-wise. Shouldn't be too difficult though. Oh, these guys do have a fort though, so we're going to need to siege that down. Luckily our vassals have been proactive and just headed on and started sieging it without us. So we'll just sit on this fort for a bit and begin building spy networks in our other targets. There we go, that's them sieged down. We'll full annex them. We've expanded quite a bit now. There's still a few nations we could eat. I'm a little wary of getting a border with our old ally Alodia. They still have 20,000 men. They do like us a bit though. Could we get an alliance with them? We could perhaps. Well, I guess we'll have to see. Let's start improving relations with them. I don't really want their 20,000 men bearing down on us at an inopportune moment. Of course, there's still the Ifat Sultanate. I do think they're still stronger than us, though. In fact, let's release all this land we've just conquered as vassals, since they'll be able to pull from it a lot more than we will. There, we've managed to get Alodia to like us enough to make an alliance. Now we're going to go to war with this Jarin nation. They're actually allied with all of the little nations here in the area, so we should just be able to... Oh, wait a minute, my CB expired. How dare they? Let's just recreate it. But they're allied with all the nations here, these three little nations. So I'm thinking we just eat them all up at once. That will give us a border with the Mamluks. Something, you know, that's not exactly high on my list of things to do, but I'm sure we'll be fine. If the Mamluks did invade us, we could maybe use our attrition to really thin them down, and it would be quite hard for them to actually invade deep into Africa, where we are. Maybe I shouldn't be making outlandish claims though. A war with the Mamluks would definitely not just be a simple deal that we would easily overcome. Alright, now let's declare war. We're not going to call Alodia in, we don't need them to help, right? We just don't want them to become hostile once we share a border. These nations do actually have forts though, so it's not going to be as simple as walking into their nation and taking them. In a way, it's kind of better they have forts though, if they're right next to the Mamluks, because I'd much rather have forts in those territories than not. There, that's those three nations conquered. We are running out of avenues of expansion now though. I guess we could go across the sea to Yemen and invade them. Yemen is guaranteed by the Mamluks though, so that's not really an option. With that in mind, I think it's time we go south against Ifat. Since we have Alodi to back us and their 25,000 men, we should just be able to overrun them. Right, we have our CB on Ifat. They've actually gone up to 10,000 levies, but we have 2,800. That's not our full strength though. We could wait to our max power. I don't really see a reason to though. Ooh, well there's a reason. Alodi is not willing to join the war. Let's improve relationship with them, although we are already at max. We need to set a cabinet minister to push diplomatic reputation to increase relationship further. Oh, well actually, they flipped over. They flipped over when we were talking about that, so we could just call them in right now. We have our CB. We also have our vassals. I think together with our vassals, we would be stronger than Ifat. But why rely on that when we can just call in a much stronger ally? I wonder if we could full annex Ifat. They actually only have one fort in their whole country. Let's have a little look. It's looking good. I think we'd be able to full annex them. It would lead to 250 aggressive expansion gain though. But all of that would be with Ifat and I guess some of the other nations in the area. Which honestly isn't that concerning, is it? One of those nations is a tributary of Ifat anyway and will become our tributary. Not that we really want them as a tributary, but at least that will stop them forming a coalition against us. Well, let's beat them first of all. That's always important to do before we make grandiose claims about what we're going to do with the land. Well, looks like we stack wiped them. I guess we just need to take their capital now. This is going to be quite bad though, annexing them a nation of this size. I'm not sure we're going to be able to handle it. We're definitely going to need to give out land to vassals, but to be fair, we've already been doing that. So that's not too big of a concern. But it's definitely going to push us over our diplomatic capacity having these many vassals. But who cares, right? Let's do it. To be fair, we are still a county. We could go and become a duchy which would help with our diplomat capacity, but we need prestige. And prestige is quite hard to come by. Whoa, there's actually a nation here on this island. I was not aware of that. I was only made aware because they became antagonized towards us. Good to know, I guess. So it goes without saying we're going to need to release a lot of this land. Let's wait a month or so to see the rebelliousness that appears. Ah, well, actually, we were immediately getting a coalition against us. There's not really that many nations that care, though. There's actually some landless nations in the region. Pop-based ones, it looks like. But I'm not sure we care about them being unhappy with us. And as long as Alodia abandons us, I don't see this Ajuran being strong enough to really challenge us. But yes, let's start releasing land. We have lots of vassals, so let's make quite a few fiefdoms. These nations up here, as discussed, are our tributaries that we've stolen, essentially. As such, we'll keep them as tributaries, at least until their antagonism with us is decayed, or at least until the coalition has dissolved. That way, they won't leave and immediately join the coalition against us. Their country balkanized. I did want to avoid doing this, just based on the modifiers our religion has, but I really don't see an alternative. Maybe if there were more modifiers that made it easier to deal with rebellious pops, but well. We'll wait for the coalition to cool off a bit. I mean, I guess we don't really need to, but I'd like to anyway. And then we'll think about going to war with Ajuran. We may even go all the way south to Kilwa and conquer them too. We do need to keep an eye on our diplomatic capacity though. We're definitely over the limit now, which is damaging us in various ways. If we could become a duchy, we could counter it. It's whether we can become a duchy, right? We'd need an event that gives us prestige. And I always find when I want prestige, I can't find it, and when I don't want it, I always have it. Here's something I've been waiting for. It's been 50 years since I used the improved cultural relationship. Now we can use it again. We're going to use it to make the Aramaics kindred of us. It now costs a little enough that we could now accept them without being over our cultural capacity limit. Unfortunately, we don't have the prestige to. I think let's go and humiliate somebody. We only really have one border nation, Ajuran, so I think we'll fabricate a humiliate rival CB on them and go humiliate them for some prestige. At the very least, that will let us actually core our land, which I'll remind you, we do not have any actual... Actually, it looks like this province, the Beta Israeli, have increased to the point where they've actually taken over and we have an actual core. How beautiful. How absolutely beautiful. You didn't think you'd live to see it, but you have. It looks like one of our vassals has exploded and released a new nation. I was never invited to the war, so I'm not sure where they've come from, though we do have a truce with them. I guess we'll just eat them once the truce is up then. In a way it may be helpful because it means it'll reduce our diplomatic capacity costs, or at least I think it did a little. Ooh, here's an event that gives prestige, a traveling rabbi. It's only going to give 10 though, and we need 25. I guess we'll take it. Problem is we are decaying on prestige. Being over our diplomatic capacity limit decreases prestige, unfortunately. But if a good event comes, we shouldn't turn our nose up at it. Alright, let's go humiliate Ajuran. Olodia isn't willing to join just because we're too far away, but based on these numbers, we should be strong enough to defeat them. We only have 4,000 levies, but our vassals together should have more than enough for us to eclipse them. Another event that gives prestige, that's another 10, that takes up to 17. If we got an event now that gave 10 prestige, we'd actually be able to become a duchy. Unfortunately, this war is only going to give us... Well, actually, we can make peace right now. I think the enemy just all got stack wiped, yep. But this would give us 5 prestige. I wish humiliating rivals scaled with how strong the rival is. But unfortunately, there's nothing else we can do that would give us prestige. I'm thinking, actually, we release these tributaries up here, and then we humiliate them as well. The problem is lining it all up. Our prestige is going to decay while time passes. So every second that we're not gaining more prestige is a waste. Let's make peace now. Take the money, take the prestige. That puts us on 22. We could spend 5 of it right now to accept a culture, but I don't really want to spend it. Let's cancel the tributary status. We'll begin building spy networks on these two nations. They aren't allied together. So if we defeat the both of them, that's 10 prestige. So as long as we're below... No, as long as we're above 15 prestige when we win those wars, that would be enough. We could always just get a good event right now, right? We could always just get a good event right now that'll put us above 25. To be fair, becoming a duchy isn't going to just solve our diplomatic issues outright, but it's going to put us a lot closer to those issues being solved. Another option we could take is actually just releasing our vassals, then conquering them. Not a bad idea, really. especially since it's not like someone else could conquer them, right? They'd be surrounded by us on all sides. I was about to attack these two, but I just noticed we have great relations, which would reduce our stability by 20. Not something I really want to do, so I guess we'll leave them for the moment. Our prestige has already dropped below 15 anyway, so it's not like attacking them would solve anything, so we're just going to accept the Amhara culture. This will actually let us core most of our territory. Isn't it beautiful? We actually have cores now. Alrighty, let's deal with this little rebellious state that appeared. They do have a fort, so we aren't just going to be able to walk in, which is always sad. But honestly, our vassals should be able to carry out the sieging of the fort. I guess we'll just siege the other locations. No reason for us to waste manpower. As I mentioned, we're going to keep this land for ourselves now. We'd like to avoid releasing any more vassals. And in fact, I'm actually thinking about releasing vassals so we can conquer them back. There's quite a few of them that are just very weak and small, so we could just release them, get a CB on them, conquer them. Since I haven't converted any of them to Judaism, we would be able to use the religious CB. Alright, let's begin cutting off some of these tiny nations. We're going to prioritize cutting ones off that are very much internal, that being they don't share a border with the outside world, so no one could come in and steal them. Then we'll declare war and just eat them back up. Simple, right? Do we even need to raise our levies? They've only got 900 men. Our vassals should be able to just deal with them. Yep, there we go. Re-annex them. One thing of note is we can actually fabricate CBs while nations are our vassals. So we can begin fabricating a CB and then release them. Some of these guys have actually converted to Judaism though, so we can't use the religious war CB on them. So we'll need to be careful that we're going for the correct ones. As nations that aren't Jewish, we won't be able to conquer as easily. It must be because they're fiefdoms. I think I remember that they actually made it so fiefdoms will now automatically have their religion converted to the nation that creates them. So we can really just make lots of Jewish nations if we release a bunch of fiefdoms everywhere. There, we've dissolved every vassal we could that wasn't Jewish. We're still a little bit over our diplomatic capacity though, but it's not the end of the world. Unfortunately, we weren't able to become a duchy. That's still something that's evading us. But we're in a much stronger position now. We can raise almost 10,000 levies. Ooh, and we just got an event that gave us 10 prestige. If we could get something right now that gives us the prestige, we'd be able to become a duchy. Unfortunately, it's largely out of my hands. We are going to have a few revolts from conquering all of this land and it all being rather rebellious. But as I said, we're strong enough now that we should be able to just fight revolts and defeat them without much worry. The next order of business really is just continue to expand in every direction. We could also start colonizing now, though at this exact moment our economy isn't doing well enough for us to. One of the problems with going wide, Judaism isn't our majority faith, but honestly we're getting there. A few more established faith actions and we should take the majority seat. On the cultural front we're much further behind though. It's probably going to be a good while before Beta Israeli take their rightful place as the majority. I haven't really mentioned it, but we do have a few events. The reason I haven't mentioned them is because we're never going to get any of them. Most of them are for us taking certain locations in the world and establishing Judaism there. If we also take the Holy Land, we gain the option to form Judea, the Kingdom of Judea in fact. But honestly, defeating the Mamluks at this early stage and taking Jerusalem doesn't really seem viable. For now though, I think we'll leave it here. It's been nearly 100 years since the game started. So it feels like a good point to stop. If you'd like to check this mod out for yourselves, I do recommend giving it a look. It does do some things for Judaism even if you don't plan to play as one. It adds laws that prevent Jewish cultures being wiped out. We can see Ashkenazi, there's still 50,000 left in the world. And quite a few of the other Jewish cultures like these Iberian ones and these Arabic ones haven't been wiped out either, which is great to see. I believe other nations also have the option to switch to Judaism early on in the game if they're played by a player. So you don't have to play in Ethiopia if you don't want to. We're also going to have access to building the Jewish quarter once we research banking, which we can throw down in foreign countries, which I suppose would be interesting, spamming these everywhere. If you would like to continue this save, then there should be a link in the pinned comment to this save for you to play for yourself, keeping in mind that you will need the mod to continue the save. If I had one thing I think this mod should do, I think you should be able to form Ethiopia. It's not really a problem for the mod. In the base game, only Coptic Christians can form Ethiopia, but I think it'd be a good idea if the mod lets you form Ethiopia, especially since the intended to play nation is here in the region. although maybe it's just better to start as Ethiopia and flip to Jewish. But either way, I will thank you for watching this video, hope you did enjoy it, and see you next time.